Hey everyone, it's actually Jeb Bush, and welcome back to the third and final video of post-trade deadline NBA SoRare future cheat codes. Once again, probably have to tweak that title a bit, but you get the idea. Now, before we jump into this video, you should know the drill. Make sure you hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. It's something very easy you can do that really helps me out and is deeply appreciated. Also, if you enjoy the NBA or DFS and don't have an NBA SoRare account, go ahead and click this link right here, which is my affiliate link. It will give you 20 free common cards when you create your account that you can use for the common contests. Additionally, if you're looking to compete in some higher tier competitions, maybe win some better and more valuable rewards, you'll actually get a limited card airdrop to you once you purchase 5 limited or higher tier cards off the new auction marketplace. But that's only if you create an account using the link below. Now that we got all of that out of the way, let's take a look at some more future cheat codes. Now, the Rockets are a team that, like the Spurs, we kind of knew were going to be tanking and sellers before the season even started. However, post-trade deadline, they're definitely worth taking another look at. Similar to the Spurs, we are going to see a lot of players getting benched, a lot of players taking time off for injuries, and a lot of players that are on the bench having opportunities to get a massive increase in minutes and usage. And the first player that we're going to look at is Tari Eason. Now, Tari Eason's sitting at $8. He's got a cap of 25 and is averaging a little over 20 minutes per game. If we take a look at his price graph, we can see, a little verticality here, a little verticality here, some pretty significant verticality here, but nothing like too crazy compared to some of the other players that we've taken a look at. With that being said, I think Tari Eason is a really interesting pick, mostly because he's kind of shown that he has a higher ceiling than people might have thought. If we go ahead and take a look at his scores, we can see that recently he dropped a 50. And, since then he's dropped a lot of low scores. But even then before that, he had a 37, a 34, a 34. And looking at the small sample size, it seems to show us that when Tari Eason is given extra minutes and usage, he really takes advantage of it. Now, while I don't know if I would necessarily rush out to buy a Tari Eason at $8, I think he's a player that is definitely worth watching and definitely worth tracking his cap, especially after that 50 gets pushed out of his top 10, kind of seeing where it lands and seeing where his price is. And, maybe he's worth picking up then and maybe even worth throwing in a lineup or two while you wait for a potential pump or for when he becomes a true cheat code lock for a specific game week. All right, so now that we looked at Tari Eason, there are 4 more players I want to highlight, but I think they're kind of worth all just highlighting on this screen and not taking a necessarily super deep dive. One of those players is Jason Tate. We talked about him before. He has a price of $4, a cap of 14. Seems like a potential dart throw. I think he's still kind of coming back from his injury. So that's one reason we haven't seen any incredible performances out of him. But with that being said, that's why he's a dart throw. We're still kind of waiting to see if he can return to putting up some higher end scores and getting the minutes and usage he would need for that. Another player in a similar vein is Josh Christopher. Given the right opportunity, Josh Christopher has been a decent cheat code. He has spiked, once or twice. And actually, let's take a quick look at Christopher's price graph. All right, so I said I wasn't going to pull this up, but I do think it is kind of worth looking at real quick because I do think it's interesting. We can see that he had a couple spikes here. We had one where he went from $2 to $6. Here's another one to $6, and then here's another one to $9 or $10. As you can see, I unfortunately, while I may have profited a little bit here, I kind of sold the bottom of that pump because I was trying to move off of my Josh Christopher, who was a dart throw for me at the time and definitely is a dart throw now. I think he might be worth picking up if you can get him, for $2 or even a little bit below that. Because, in the right situation, he has a potential to get a big increase in minutes and usage. And if you're not confident in him as a player, there's that potential that you could sell a pump like this. As we can see, he's had a couple more before dipping down much lower. So yeah, I think Josh Christopher is a dart throw similar to Tate. Another player that I wanted to highlight was Usman Garuba. Now we talked about Usman in our So Rare Steals video, so we're not going to take a deep dive here. But I do think it's worth noting that he is now the backup center as opposed to the third string center, which just gives him even more chances at being a cheat code for the rest of the season. You know, if Sengun is sitting or is out, Garuba kind of becomes a smash play. And picking him up at below $4, you know, picking him up at $3, $2 seems like a bit of a no-brainer. I don't think I own one yet, but I will make sure to get at least one because with, you know, a nice low cap, a nice low price, and a lot of potential to be starting in games moving forward here and there, as like we said, the Rockets actively and aggressively try to tank and Sengun is rested and whatever else, Garuba could put up a significant number or get a pretty decent pump in the marketplace. So I really like Usman Garuba. And the last player that I think is worth pointing out is Ty Washington Jr. And I actually think we are going to take a look at his price graph and take a little deeper dive here. So we can see Ty is sitting at a little over $6. He's got a cap of 9, which is interesting. That always piques my interest. Someone below 10, and he's averaging around 15 minutes per game. But if we take a look at his price graph here, you know, we can see a lot of little verticality here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, another one here, and then a massive one here, probably capping at like 16, 15 to like $17. This is definitely an outlier. And then another one here going up all the way to 12. Ty Washington is a backup and he's a rookie. And I believe these two spikes are happening because Jalen Green was injured and missed some time. So once again, he's in the perfect position for whether Jalen Green gets injured or sits because the Rockets are tanking, like we've said multiple times, where we will see a surge in the marketplace as people rush to pick him up, knowing he's guaranteed to get more minutes than usual and potentially triple his cap. Putting up a 27 isn't this crazy feat if someone is a starting guard. I like Ty Washington maybe closer to $4 or even like 3 or 2. I don't know if he gets all the way down to 2. I do think it's a little expensive here. Like I'm not rushing out to buy him. I think we're kind of coming down from this spike still, but as we can see, looking at this spike here, he got all the way back down to like $3 pretty quickly. And I think there's an opportunity for that to happen again. He's a player definitely worth watching. And if he dips into a price you feel comfortable at least having one of him, I don't think it's a bad idea at all and is a pretty decent dart throw. All right, so the next team I want to take a look at is the Orlando Magic. And I specifically kind of want to look at their, you know, forwards because the Magic traded away Mo Bamba to the Lakers, kind of just opening up a little more room for some of their bench players to breathe. But by getting rid of Mo Bamba, I think that clears space for someone like a Bol. If we go ahead and take a look here at Bol, we can see he's sitting at about $10. He's got a very low cap, which is pretty interesting. He's averaging 15 minutes per game, which is not ideal, but I think that might go up a bit, like we said, now that Mo Bamba's gone. If we look at his price graph here, we can see some verticality, nothing too crazy, but we can also see that at one point he was kind of sitting at a higher price echelon. And I think if we look at his scores, we can kind of see the reason why. Bol was going on an absolute tear for a little bit. We can see he's dropping multiple 40s here. And he was considered a more valuable player in SoRare earlier in the season. And now he's been just putting up duds. But I don't think that's because he's fallen off or he was injured or anything like that. I just think he hasn't been given the minutes. Like if we look here, 12 minutes for Bol, 16 minutes for Bol. Here's a 24 that he did in 14. He is not being given a lot of minutes here. While $10 is a little expensive because this seems like a riskier dart throw, I feel like he's in a better position to have an opportunity to get a decent increase in minutes or usage. He's a guy with a very low cap who has shown a very high and consistent ceiling. And, it's possible later in the season he returns to that. And maybe we don't see a massive jump in price, but we see his price continue to increase as he becomes kind of a lock for, 2 or 3 game weeks with such a crazy low cap. So that's the real reason Bol stands out is, don't love the price, but having a cap of close to 10 when at one point in the season he was dropping 40 bombs is pretty interesting. There's not a lot of players out there like that right now. So yeah, if you have a high tolerance for risk, maybe pick up a Bol or two. And then really quickly, I just wanted to point it out. I think Franz is interesting. $17 seems a bit low. 24 is a pretty low cap for him, especially when, once again, he was a player that was performing at a high level earlier in the season. And he's actually a very, very, very good player on both ends of the court. So I like Franz. I wouldn't necessarily call him a cheat code. I guess you could call him a cheat code in the sense, he could easily double this cap and you could fit him as a fourth guy on a champion lineup. So maybe not so much a future cheat code. He's kind of one of those guys you're plugging into a lineup hoping he pops off and you get that advantage of that very low cap. Finally, the very last team that we're going to talk about is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, we did make a SoRare steals on the Hornets, and we talked about them before the trade deadline. They did make some moves, which we kind of thought would happen. And as a result, some minutes and some usage has really opened up, mostly at the big man spot at the center. Mason Plumlee was traded away, and now Mark Williams is the starter. We highlighted Mark Williams on our trade deadline stream. We did not talk about him in SoRare steals, so I'm not going to dive super deep into him. A cap of 18 is pretty attractive here, but a price of 21 doesn't make me want to go and rush out and buy him, especially because the Hornets are kind of weird, and sometimes Mark Williams does not nearly get the minutes you would think he would get, considering if you watch their games, it seems he has a pretty high ceiling and they should be like really developing him and getting him more time. But weirdly, so far, we're kind of seeing Mark Williams split with Nick Richards, who's the other person I want to highlight. Now, Nick Richards has an even lower cap and an even lower price, which is encouraging to see. He might be worth picking up as a handcuff in case, Mark Williams gets injured. And Nick Richards starts taking on a lot more minutes as a starter. Once again, I think his price is a little high here, even though it's much lower than Mark Williams. I do think it's a little high. Now, I really like Mark Williams as a player. I really like Mark Williams as a player a lot. But the current Charlotte situation results in kind of Nick Richards and Mark Williams really preventing either one of them from like really testing that ceiling and throwing up ceiling games consistently. So as a result, I don't think either of them are a smash play or an automatic cheat code. Like I just said, the reason you'd kind of want one of these guys is in case the other one got injured and all the minutes that were kind of being split between the two fall more to the one that is healthy and starting. So yeah, I'm not rushing out to buy either, but I will be watching their prices and their cap. Really quickly, I think it's worth highlighting that Gordon Hayward has been playing very well recently and has a pretty decently low cap and a low price. I don't own one. I don't plan to get one, but just think it's worth pointing out. And also, I just want to make sure we say free Theo Maledon. He should have way more cards. He is an integral part to the Charlotte Hornets, and I will not rest until that is fixed. And I almost forgot, but I think Bryce McGowan's is a pretty good dart throw here. He's sitting at $4, which, I mean, that's not a high price, but it's a little high for me. Let's take a quick look at him real quick. So like I said, he's sitting at $4. He's got a nice low cap and is averaging a pretty decent amount of minutes lately. As you can see, I do own one Bryce McGowan's. Early on in the season, I bought one and flipped him for a small profit. But we can see, looking across the price graph, he's had multiple instances of some pretty solid verticality. Obviously, especially this one being the big one where he went from $2 to $12, which is, a 6x is pretty significant. Also, Kappa 7, if we look at his scores, I know recently, yeah, he dropped a 25. I know because I played him in a lineup and I was very happy with that. He's not an awful player. He's a guy that if he has a very low cap like he does now, is worth kind of squeezing into a lineup so you can also throw in a way better player to go with an MVP, or even squeeze in a borderline MVP player into a contender lineup. I really like Bryce McGowan's, both for the possibility of being a future cheat code and flipping for a pretty nice profit margin. But like I said at the beginning, I'd probably want to wait till he dips a bit more into that $2 range. I think he's going to go right back down like we've seen time and time again. He kind of lives at that $2 range until he is moved up in the depth chart because of an injury or someone sitting, which will definitely happen because the Hornets are for sure tanking and trying to lose as many games as possible. So definitely worth picking up. Just maybe be a little more patient and not spend $4 a pop. And I think that about does it. Thank you so much for checking out all 3 of these videos. I hope you gleaned some solid information from them and are able to make some interesting dart throws on your own. Let me know in the comments if there's anyone in particular that you like, or there's someone I missed, or someone that I highlighted that you think maybe isn't as great of a dart throw or as much of a lock as a future cheat code as I might have thought. It's always interesting to talk about this stuff. It's something that I really enjoy and probably obsess over a little too much. But anyways, thank you once again. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. It really helps out a lot and is deeply appreciated. If you don't have an NBA SoRare account, use the link in the description below. And I will see you guys next video where we take a look at some more future cheat codes on NBA SoRare. Please clap.